like to try experiments with every show, and this one, I've spent most of my productive years in my life being a career counselor, and I've had 6,000 clients, and I've done well, got very high client satisfaction. So I decided to try to do today's show by listing what I think are the most useful career tips of any sort that I can come up with that reflect all my current thinking in light of all my past experience. And so whether you're just starting out in your career or you've been at it a long time, I like to think that there should be something in this buffet that's of interest. I'll try to make it marginally entertaining without it being silly. So the first thing I want to talk about is kind of at the front end, which is choosing a career. I try to think of three. Three is kind of the magic number in almost everything. If you give 3 examples, it feels like it's enough, but not too much. 3 under-the-radar good careers. If somebody put a gun to my head and said, Marty, you've got to pick 3 careers that overall, if you're going to share it with the public, that overall, of course, the best career for one person is the worst for somebody else. But all things equal, three careers that have high job satisfaction, reasonable pay, not likely to be offshored, socially acceptable or even excellent. So here's the first one. First is hair cutter. What makes that good is you succeed with nearly every customer if you're any good. Of course, this is true of any career. If you're bad, you're going to hate it and you're not going to do well at it. But if you're a reasonably good hair cutter, you are succeeding with nearly every client. You are developing a relationship with people because you see them every 6-8 weeks. It's upbeat, it's pleasant, it's you have regular hours. Nobody's going to call you at 2 a.m. saying, I need my hair colored. So the first of the 3 careers that I wanted to tout was hair cutter. And even though it's not a white-collar, professional-level job, there are plenty of people who have degrees and advanced degrees who do it. And you can really make the most of that experience if you're a really, bright person. Just connecting with each of your customers, having these really wonderful conversations can be enriching, whether you're very bright or not very bright. Okay, next one is optometrist. It is there are programs that allow you to do it, straight from high school to a doctor of optometry degree in 7 years. But typically, most people do a 4-year bachelor's in something sciencey and then go to an optometry school for 4 years. But after that 8 years, you have a job that is, again, you're succeeding with nearly every client, which is a very, very important part of feeling good about your life. And you're really making a difference between somebody who can't see well and somebody who sees. Of course, there are people with low vision or who have advanced glaucoma who you may not be able to help too much. But in general, you're helping a high percentage of your clients. Again, no night hours, solid income, relatively prestigious, kind of under the radar. Most people never think, they think about the medical professions, doctor and nurse and maybe physical therapist, but they don't think optometrist. But it's a very good career, and I don't think it's very likely to be offshored. I think it could be done remotely, I guess, in theory, but I don't think it's very likely. And the third career that I'd like to tout is one that my PhD actually specialized in, and you don't necessarily need a PhD. It's program evaluator. Almost every program that's funded by the government or anybody, by a nonprofit, by a corporation, usually requires to be evaluated. And it's a very cool career for 2 reasons. One, you get to see innovation all the time, but as important, you're getting to make determinations about where additional effort and money should go. Should it be to this reading program A or reading program B? Should it be it could be anything from procure the way in which the Navy procures desks. Is it done efficiently? And it's got 2 lovely components. One is called the formative component, where you're trying to help improve the program, and the other is the summative, where you're giving the yay-nay evaluation. Should this program be funded additionally, just the status quo, or cut? So program evaluator, and people are hired to do program evaluation, independent consulting firms, the government, companies, and again, that's going to be very unlikely in my judgment to be offshored career. So those are three under the radar good careers: haircutter, optometrist, program evaluator. Now I want to talk about job searching in the time of COVID. I'm going to make these little tips all having to do with C, and it's connecting, cold, compelling contact, and collateral. Connecting, that's just another word. I could have easily used network, but it doesn't start with C. Unfortunately, in ever fewer good jobs, that is, stable, ethical, good pay, good coworkers, all the rest of it. Well, whenever there is a shortage, those good jobs tend to go to people who know someone. It's like when you want to buy a house. If you just look at what's on the market openly, you're never going to get the great stuff. The good stuff, the realtors keep for themselves or to their best clients. So, even if you're an introvert, and I am an introvert, you have to have, not have to, it really helps if you have a network. And if you don't have one, of people who like you, and they don't have to be, sometimes, yes, of course, the ones who are closest to you are going to be the most likely to help. But even somebody you went back to, people you went from your alumni network at college, or you dig up at LinkedIn who had the same former employer, family, friends of family, people, your haircutter, people know people, and not everybody, but some people are sometimes eager to help if they like you. If they don't like you or respect you, you're not going to get much help. But, using your network, explaining why you're looking for, what you're looking for. Don't be too specific. Don't be too narrow. Don't say, for example, it's very rare that you really only need to work as a plant manager in a soybean processing plant. It's more typically you're going to want to say, I'd like a people-centric job managing people and projects for a company that's doing ethical work. That's more of the right level of specificity. It's not saying I'm open to anything, which would make you seem desperate. It's not highly specific. It gives enough room for somebody people you're going to contact to maybe know of somebody you should talk with or even to hire you. So the first of the job searchings in the time of COVID is connecting. It's more important than ever because with COVID and the what I call the COVID-lamed economy, indeed things are good jobs are ever harder to find. It was that way before, but not as bad because, with ever more burdens on employers to provide benefits, health care, rights of employees, the cost of hiring somebody and the difficulty of terminating somebody is so huge that companies are hiring as little as they can and automating as much as they can and offshoring as much as they can. But with COVID now, with the COVID economy having killed so many jobs, it's even more important than ever to network, or what I'm calling the first C, connecting. The next one is what I call cold, compelling contact. And this is not for everybody. Some people are just too shy to make cold contact or not good at it. They're just going to do a lousy job. It doesn't really matter so much whether you do it by email or phone. Do the one that's better for you. But making a cold, brief, compelling contact, and I'm going to just try to make up something here. So, for example, if I wanted to be a program evaluator, I might contact a half a dozen or a dozen places that hired program evaluators. They're the government agencies. I could usually, if you do some good Googling, you can find them. Or I know there are evaluation firms. One here where I live in the Bay Area is called Far West Labs. There's plenty of them. So just probably even, Google is the most underrated tool for finding whatever you want. And probably just Google program evaluation or program evaluation firms, companies, services, whatever, and probably find one or two or three. And then if you find one or two, put those two names in the Google search, and that'll probably get you a list of even more. Anyway, so once you find people, it's not so easy, but using a combination of Googling on the company, maybe on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is very good for finding names of people. Search on the name of the company and see. Very often you'll find some names, and then if either on LinkedIn you can use LinkedIn Premium to message them, or you can search on their name and perhaps the word email, perhaps the area code of the firm. And you don't always get it, but you'll get it often enough that it's worth the time. It shouldn't take that long. And then the key, of course, is when you make the compelling contact. So is how to make it compelling. So what I would do would be something like, if I'm looking for a program evaluator job, I'd say something like, "Hi, I'm Marty Nemko. I suspect the last thing you'd want to hear is an unsolicited call. But I'm really excited about beginning my career as a program evaluator. I have my degree from whatever the Claremont Graduate School in program evaluation, and I particularly am interested in your firm. I see how many really interesting evaluations you do. I'm wondering if you might be willing to chat with me, perhaps about a possible job, but even for some advice as to where I should turn. I will follow up this phone call with an email that includes my resume and reiterates what I've said. In any event, I certainly understand that you might be too busy to respond, but I would welcome hearing from you. Here is my phone number. So that's, something you'd say like that in a very conversational, honest tone, in roughly 1 minute, so you're not taking too much of the person's time. And again, if doing it by phone is going to be too tough for you, even if you did rehearse, then fine. Let's do it with email and maybe follow up with a phone call. Follow-up phone call, by the way, should sound something like, "Hi, this is Marty Nemko. I'm the aspiring program evaluator. I emailed you and phoned you, but not having heard from you, I'm assuming you're too busy. I understand. But if by any chance you might have the time to chat with me, I would be really honored. Maybe I could be of help to you. Maybe you'd give me a little advice. I'd welcome that. My phone number is," and I promise I won't be a pest. If I don't hear from you again, I won't call. So that's a nice follow-up phone call. Okay, and then the third key to successful job searching in the time of COVID is collateral material. Very often, there's an old rule in screenwriting: show, don't tell. You can say how great you are, and resumes are filled with high-flying language that often is distrusted. But if you can send a piece of collateral, a work sample, and my favorite is what's called a white paper. It's a 2 or 3 page paper on a topic that would be of compelling interest to your target employers. So if I wanted to be a program evaluator, I might, for example, write a 2-pager that says, 7 keys to excellent program evaluation in 2021 and beyond. And use it, I would, if I didn't just come out of graduate school, I might just, again, do a Google search and read some articles and copy some nuggets and put them in a nice order and share my own personal thoughts. And I've got a nice work sample. So those are my thoughts on job searching in the time of COVID. All these C's: connecting, cold, compelling contact, and collateral. Okay. I want to do one more before we take a little break. Words and phrases that convey intelligence. We're not supposed to use the word intelligence these days for reasons that go beyond the scope of this talk, but nonetheless, quietly, or maybe not so quietly, when Google's head of human resources wrote a book, he said intelligence is the number one thing we look for in our job candidates, not experience, but intelligence. Anyway, 3 words that convey intelligence, and also the more you use those concepts, the more intelligent you'll actually be. And the first word is probabilistic. Most things are not black and white. We're trying to evaluate the probability of something occurring. So you could say, in light of A and B, I think the probability of this occurring is X. In light of, and that lends nuance to your thinking and to your explanations and makes you appear intelligent. And become more intelligent, you start thinking probabilistically. The next is opportunity cost. I love that word, that concept. It is when you make a decision how to spend your time or your money, whether it's yours or the company's or nonprofits, whatever, there is an opportunity cost. It's what the money could have been spent on. So, for example, when NASA sent landed the thing, I went to Mars. Everybody went ooh and ah, what an amazing thing. But I was thinking of opportunity cost. What could that money have been better spent on? The liberal side of me says, my God, all these people starving or whatever, why not spend it on that? Or with COVID, there's a shortage of nurses or whatever, why don't we spend it on hiring and training, more nurses? Opportunity cost is another term that I think conveys intelligence, and if you use it, is a sign of intelligence. And the third is risk reward. Everything has risk and reward associated with it. Every time I walk out of the house, there's a risk I'll get run over by a car. But we make the assessment that the rewards of walking out are worth the risk. Thinking in terms of risk reward is very good. And one of my favorite words, I use it all the time, the fourth of these words that convey intelligence is wise or wisdom. There are a lot of things that are clever. You can be a clever turn of phrase or a clever idea or a smart idea, but wisdom goes beyond. Wisdom is thinking in terms of what is going to have the greatest effect on society. This decision, that decision. Is it wise? Is it ethical? Does it, as that old phrase, take care, does it consider the people, product, the people, profits, and planet, the three Ps, all of that. The wise person is considering the full range of factors. In any event, now you're listening to How to Do Life. I'm Marty Nemko. When I come back, I'm going to talk about managing procrastination, what to do when you're ignored, do you talk too much, the issue of interrupting people, learning efficiently, an easier path to good public speaking, when nothing seems to matter, my definition of what inclusion should be, the ethics of career counseling and lack thereof, and finally, one definition of the life well led. In any event, stay with me. I'll only be about 10 or 15 seconds. Got to take a break because it's a podcast. I'll be back right away. Stay with me. I'm Marty Nemko. Thank you for staying with me. I'm trying to do a show here in which I give my very best ideas about work all crammed into one roughly half-hour show. I'm guessing I'm going to have to go a little long, but hopefully you'll be worth it. And you can always switch to some other podcast. Anyway, mine or somebody else's. Anyway, managing procrastination. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this because my clients are huge procrastinators. And I have a disadvantage in that I'm not at all a procrastinator. So I don't want to fall prey to the mistake that how-to advice givers do, which is they say, if it worked for me, it'll work for you. No, I think I'm a weird duck, and I just never procrastinate, almost never. But the three techniques that have worked most helpfully for my clients are, one is the 1-second task. Whether you're just starting a task or you're stuck in the middle and you're tempted to go and fool around and not do it, one of the ways to stay focused is simply say, what is my next 1-second task? That's a nice, easy, friendly amount of thing to do. And whether it's turning on the computer and titling your article, even if you're stuck, it's okay. What do I need to do? Take a deep breath. What's your next 1-second task? That can help. The other is micro breaks. Very often people, when you feel you need it, and I do this all the time, I need a break too. But what helps me a lot is I don't take long breaks. I take as many micro breaks as I can. So that you're not wasting a lot of time. So sometimes it's as simple as one deep breath. Sometimes it's petting the dog on the floor. Sometimes it's cleaning the toilet. Sometimes it's taking a walk around the block. But something that's short. Getting a cup of coffee. Micro breaks. A nice thing to think about what you really like as short little breaks that would work for you, and then making yourself go back to that table and say, to that desk or whatever, and say, what's my next 1-second task? And the final of the three tools I wanted to share with you about managing procrastination is making it fun. Almost nobody, unless you're inordinately Calvinist, is willing to spend much time doing work they find hard. So think about making it fun. We're entering the tax preparation season. How could you make it fun? Thinking about it as this game where you're going to try to strike the balance between as aggressive as you can be while still staying within the law. Maybe it's, I want to see if I can get this Schedule C done before I have lunch. Maybe it's having music on. Whatever it can be to make it fun. So those are the three tools for managing procrastination. The 1-second task, micro breaks, and making it fun. Now, I think the very most read post that I ever wrote on Psychology Today has had, I think, about 500,000 views. It was called, I think, When You're Ignored. So many people in this the word that comes to mind is scrambling society, with everybody scrambling to try to survive, if not thrive. They were ignored all the time. We don't even get rejection letters. People apply. My clients have applied for jobs, done a great job, and then they get sometimes they'll get a rejection letter, but sometimes they not even get a response. And if you're in the social domain, especially if you're not conventionally attractive, you're very likely to be ignored. And if you're a social person, likely to feel lonely. So what do you do? Well, first, I don't have any magic pills here, of course. I don't have magic pills for anything. First is ask yourself if it's likely fixable. Sometimes you can be less likely to be ignored. For example, if you're looking for a job, doing the job search well, as I described earlier, if you're not as attractive as you want to be, even people who are not conventionally attractive can look better, doing something with their hair or their makeup or their clothes, maybe lose the 20 pounds, whatever. Ask yourself if it's likely fixable. But ultimately, we can normally just tweak ourselves. We can't remake ourselves. So ultimately, if you've tended to be ignored for much of your life, you probably need to accept that there's going to be some measure of continuing to be ignored. So then your sense of self has got to come from within you. I guess I will reveal something. I mean, I've never been conventionally attractive, and so while I very much wanted girlfriends when I was single, I was ignored most of the time. And in the end, I'm grateful for my wife, Barbara Nemko, but there was a silver lining in being ignored. My sense of self does not come primarily from what others say to me, do to me, and I've had a person who is quite cruel, who has just tried to destroy me for a long time, unfairly, very unfairly in my judgment. Anyway, but I try to derive my sense of worth from within. If I feel I'm ethical and working hard, being a good person, whether I get a thank you or not, and usually I don't, I can't let my feeling okay about myself. I don't feel great about myself, but I don't feel terrible either. I can't let it depend on other people. So if you are ignored, try to find satisfaction in yourself. Okay, next. Do you talk too much? There's a little irony in that, and then I'm talking with you for 35 minutes, but that's the nature of a podcast. A lot of my clients have failed in their personal and professional lives because they do talk too much. What's helped some of them is something called the traffic light rule. During the first 30 seconds of an utterance, your light's green. Your people listening, they don't think you're a blowhard. Second 30 second, it's yellow. It's an increasing chance that they're wishing you shut up. And at the 60-second mark, unless you're telling a really great story or it really requires more than a minute, you better shut up or ask a question. What I've learned, though, when I used to tell people that, they said, yeah, great. And then, before long, they were back to talking for 5 or 7 minutes in a row. Well, what helps is try, how we use a kitchen timer and talk. And then look at where 30 seconds is. Look at where 60 seconds is. That feedback can get you to realize that you're talking along. And also realize the details that may be important to you may not be important to the other person. Don't be wrapped up in yourself. Think about, is that person really want to hear this? And even if they might want to hear it, break it up into bite-sized pieces. Give them a chance. It's a conversation. It's not a lecture. Give them a chance to talk, to ask questions, to whatever. And then you can add, but the traffic light rule is really good, keeping your utterances to under a minute. Then the other part of that I like is I used to call it the 30-50 rule. I think it's the less 30-50 rule is good. Try to make your goal in general, and every situation is different, but to talk 30 to 50% of the time, let the other person talk 50 to 70. That way, it's a true exchange. Good thing to keep in mind. And again, if you're not good at doing that or not aware of it, or you're so wrapped up in what you're thinking or saying that you don't remember, try it with a friend. Have the conversation. Ask them. Say you're trying to follow the traffic light rule and the 30-50 rule, and see do they agree you're doing it. Also ask for some general feedback. Is there anything else? Are you annoying in some way in the way in which you talk, or too little or too much, or too critical or too Pollyannish or whatever? Ask a trusted friend. Okay, now, interrupting. It is more harmful than you think. Of course, interrupting is sometimes wise. There are some people, even they know they go off on tangents, and they're actually grateful. And frankly, my clients are often grateful for me when I rein them in, because they often go on these tangents and they don't know how to get out of it. So sometimes it is appropriate to interrupt. And you matter too. Your time is valuable, and at times you're going to not want to listen to the long misses. So sometimes interrupting is appropriate, but more often it is not appropriate. First, it invalidates a person. It makes the person feel that what you're going to say is more valuable than theirs. And it may be true, but you pay a big price when you interrupt. The other thing is it deprives you of time to think. When they're talking, even if they're talking at length, rather than interrupting and incurring that price that they're going to feel invalidated, you can sometimes, if they're going off on something that isn't really critical, you can rehearse in advance what you think you might want to say. But interrupting is, there's a time for interrupting, but more often than not, people interrupt too much. Next, learning efficiently on your own. The cost and time of college, graduate school, even certificate programs is huge. So much can be learned on your own if you are willing to be somewhat self-motivated. The article is the most underrated tool. Google is, I am very concerned about Google's widely agreed on bias in their search criteria. But it is an amazing tool which I use constantly. Its algorithm enables me to find whatever I want to learn, usually quite quickly. In the first few search results, or at minimum, I get to learn better search terms from looking at those little 2-line thumbnails and saying, oh, there's a better search term. I can find articles so quickly, and an article is really valuable because it distills the wisdom of some expert in something I can read in a few minutes. And thanks to Google and the internet, I can read it for free. The article is an amazing tool for teaching yourself stuff. Okay, videos. Of course, when you're searching on Google, you not only get text or articles, but videos as well. Very often they say we learn much more by seeing than by reading. So certainly videos are amazing, especially for how-to. The book. Books are hugely demanding of time. And I've learned how, occasionally I'll read a novel just for the fun of it, like All the Light I Cannot See. I just love that novel, and I read it cover to cover. But very often, especially if it's nonfiction, I'm trying to learn something, I will go to Amazon, I will search on the term that I'm interested in, and let's say it is program evaluation, and I will see the first few search results. I will look at the top few reviews, see which ones, which titles call to me, which the title of the first reader reviews call to me. I might read the reader reviews. Some of the best reader reviews actually include the most important content. I might, click on the Amazon's Look Inside This Book feature, which enables me to see the table of contents, which could teach me the rubric, and I would then maybe click on one of the chapters if it lets me do that. And if I'm still intrigued, then it's so easy to buy. One click and it's at my door, in a day or two with Amazon Prime. So that's and if I get the book, then I'm not going to read the whole book cover to cover. Generally, the most nuggets are in either the introduction or the conclusion, and I will certainly look at the chapter titles, and I might scan one or two chapters, read more carefully sections within that chapter, and so within much less time, I am doing a hell of a lot of learning. The final thing I want to talk about learning efficiently is watching others, watching a master at work. If you can get to watch a master at work and ask some questions, that's gold. So maybe silver is having them watch you and asking for honest feedback, because people are nice. They don't want to give candid feedback unless you really ask for it. Okay, next. An easier path to good public speaking, maybe even excellent. Start with just a brief outline. What are the main points that you really want your audience to keep in mind? You really need to keep in mind both what you care about sharing, but also what the audience wants to know. Write just a few main points, and maybe list next to each main point a word to remind you of an example or an anecdote or a statistic. Then, just with that little outline, which could be on an index card or just a few lines on your computer screen, practice, but ad-libbing. Do not script it. It leaches the chemistry from your talk, which is what's key. If people just wanted the facts, they could read an article. They're wanting to hear you talk because of the chemistry that comes. So practice by ad-libbing. And then when you start your talk, it sounds like a Buddhist, which is nothing bad, but just be in the moment. Stop thinking about the outcome. Just ad-lib, be your best self. I'm doing that with you right now. I have my little points, my little topics that I wanted to cover. And other than that, I'm just being myself, and I'm letting go of the outcome. You may hate me, you may like me, you may think I'm talking too fast, you may think I can't worry about it. I'm giving you my best. And whatever happens, happens. Let go. And that's going to enable you to be better and more authentic and certainly feel better about everything you do. That's the world's shortest course in public speaking. Tough next little topic, when nothing seems to matter. Ultimately, not much matters. Even if you're the President of the United States. Most presidents are going to think about Grover Cleveland. Think about James Buchanan. Think about Donald Trump. How much different did you have to actually end up making? That's the President of the United States. Now think about yourself. You're not going to make that much of a difference. Accepting that. But then it doesn't mean your life's meaningless. But it means you have to scale back what matters. Finding pleasure in simple contributions. Being nice to the people around you. Doing a good job at your work project. Helping others. And then simple pleasures. I mean, I get pleasure out of hugging my dog, looking at a plant, taking a walk, being with my wife. Simple contributions, simple pleasures can be somewhat of an antidote to when nothing seems to matter. Okay, next I want to talk about true inclusion. The word diversity and inclusion is maybe the most commonly used phrase these days, and yet it excludes half the population, males, and especially white males, and any ideas that tend to dare veer right of center. Not all wisdom resides left of center, and not even all ideas are centrist. Some radical ideas from the left and the right are very wise. I am very lamenting and the left doesn't like when I use the term cancel culture, but it's a fair statement. Countless intelligent, well-meaning, ethical human beings who happen to have come to the conclusion that some ideas right of center are what they believe or want to promulgate, they are crushed. Their careers are crushed, sometimes even their physical safety. Yes, it's happened to me, but it's also happened to many people much more worthy than I am. I really wish that we have true inclusion, and that would include diversity of ideas. And yes, all white males are not evil. White males have contributed a great deal to society, from Shakespeare to Steven Spielberg, to the COVID vaccine. Certainly many of the creators of the COVID vaccines. It's this anti-male thing. Every time I watch a commercial or a sitcom or a movie or whatever, it's some spunky, woman or a minority putting a white male in his place. Especially if he's rich, and most wealth has not been ill-begotten. It means that people have paid good money to get their services or products. I think this denigration of white males, if we had done that to black, if we were as critical of blacks as we are to white males, nobody would tolerate it. There is wisdom across races, genders, sexual orientations, and ideologies. I want to talk about the lack of ethics of many career counselors, and as one I can talk about two things that I've become very loath to do. One is I do think it is no more ethical for a career counselor to write somebody's resume or LinkedIn or cover letter than it is for a parent to write a kid's college application essay. I think that's unacceptable. I think, and in fact, there's real questions about helping a job seeker to land a job, making him or her, usually when the career counselor's done his job and is worth their money, in a sense, they've made the candidate look better than they really are. They've polished them with, the right phrases for why you've been unemployed so long, to, video interviews to make the person look better than some candidate who wanted to sell themselves based on who they really are, not get puffed up. So I find job search counseling unethical. What I consider career counseling to be very ethical is helping the person to make the most of who they are, whether it be improving their thinking, their public speaking, their writing, running a meeting better, helping them choose a career that's well suited. There's plenty for a career coach to do, but I do think that the writing of resumes, cover letters, and LinkedIn profiles, and even helping people land a job has serious ethical questions. And the last thing I want to end with is, and I want to thank you if you stayed with me all this time. I'm glad. I'm trying my best to be concise. Anyway, this is my definition of what the life well led is. Of course, philosophers have debated this for millennia, but I have, I'm pretty unalterable at this, and I've discussed this at length with the guy who was my doctoral advisor many years ago, and we've stayed friends all these decades, Michael Scriven, a PhD in philosophy as well as program evaluation, a very eminent guy, head of the American Evaluation Association. Anyway, we agree that the life well led is pretty much exclusively about contribution. It's not about work-life balance. Because in hour 41 of a work week, if somebody decides, even if they're a bricklayer, deciding whether to lay the bricks for somebody's home or to go and sit with a six-pack and watch sport game, that in that hour 41, that person who is choosing to lay the bricks is living a life better led. So consistent with you not making yourself sick and dying early because of the overwork, but generally if you're doing work that you're good at and you're ethical about it, it's not more stressful to do your work than it is to watch the game. In fact, I've seen plenty of people, sports fans, watch a game and yell like bloody murder, which I'm sure is more stressful. In any case, my definition of the life well led is spend as many heartbeats as consistent with reasonable health in the service of using your best skills to make a difference. I'll say that again. I believe that, or at least my definition of the life well led, is spending as many of your heartbeats as possible doing the work that you feel you do well in the service of making things better, especially if it's work that somebody else wouldn't do. Again, because I've been a career counselor so long, I like to think I have something to share with you that maybe somebody else couldn't. So that's why I'm doing these things. It's certainly not for money or anything. Anyway, that's it. So I will simply say thank you for watching How to Do Life. I am Marty Nemko. If you're watching this on YouTube rather than in either way, I'd welcome your thumbs up or your positive comments. Accept your thumbs down and your negative comments if you feel that's appropriate. I especially like it if you would share it with your social media so that my efforts can have broader impact. And I am flattered if you do subscribe to my channel, whether it be my YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube or my podcast. In any event, I do thank you for watching or listening. I am Marty Nemko.